Walker. Mr. Rodriguez, I wanted you to have another opportunity to walk us through the vetting process. This hearing is being broadcast through C-SPAN 3, and then they will view it, they will run it a few more times. So maybe some in the television audience have not had a chance because they just plugged in now to talk about and to hear you talk about how the vetting process that you have in place, how secure you feel that is, how comfortable you feel that there is the existing security screening process that we have is able to identify potential extremists and threats to the United States. If you could walk us through that process about what your department is doing.
Thank you, Chairwoman, for that opportunity. And Undersecretary Richard actually did a very nice job of walking through the broader process, which of course starts with the first encounter with the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees. Then they go to a resettlement contractor that works with the Department of State. That begins the first part, two of the first critical parts of the vetting process, which is UNHCR itself conducts an interview of the individual in order to determine whether they're stating a refugee claim. That's information that we receive and then later on becomes part of our interview process. The biographic checks, basically based on the pedigree information, if you will, that's given to us by the applicant's refugee status, are tested against three important databases. First is the Consular Lookout database, which is maintained by the State Department. It essentially describes people who've been encountered during the consular process. In some cases, we look to the FBI to give us something called the Security Advisory Opinion, which again looks to a series of sources that are both law enforcement and intelligence sources, but most critically for this particular population is the third of the databases that I mentioned, which is the interagency check. That interagency check queries against a number of law enforcement and intelligence sources and the community that's working in partnership, the National Security Council, the National Counterterrorism Center, the State Department, us. We are in a constant process of thinking about how we further strengthen those sources, not just to vet Syrians, but to vet anybody else, be it Iraqis, be it Afghans, as Somalis, as the case might be. So as I indicated before, that process, just in the case, has identified 30 individuals who, just as part of that process, were identified as having derogatory history, were denied admission at that point. We then get to the point where our officers conduct the interview. So by the time they're doing that, they have the benefit of the interview that's already been conducted by the High Commissioner. They have the results of these checks. But very critically, they have not only their own deep understanding of the country conditions about which they have been briefed prior to deployment, but they also have their experience in interviewing individuals. And so through that, they also gain a lot of depth of understanding of what makes sense, of what adds up, what's credible. And so through that process, they're making decisions about whether people will, in fact, move to the next stage, or whether, in fact, there is a problem with the account they're given. Sometimes that problem could be a contradiction between what they're saying during the screening interview and what they told the High Commission. Sometimes it can be that the information they're giving is completely inconsistent with the country conditions as we know them. And by the way, the information that we gather, we often nominate that information to be part of intelligence databases, because we get information that is then used to deepen our understanding of what's going on, whether it's in Syria or somewhere else. And of course, that then fortifies the work that we're doing in the future. Is the process risk-free? There is no risk-free process. Are we doing the absolute best that we can practically with the resources? Are we giving our folks the best training we can give them? Are we using the best intelligence resources that we can get our hands on? And the answer to that is absolutely yes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Richard and Mr. Stahl, I wanted to give you an opportunity in case you had any concluding statement that you would like to make.
You know, you'll notice that we all said that we're able to do this with the bipartisan support of Congress. And we actually say that to people in other countries, too, and explain to them that no matter what they hear about Washington, this program actually has benefited year in and year out from bicameral, bipartisan support. And it's my desire to keep it that way. And I appreciate both of you sticking this out to the end here and your help to help us to keep it that way, because I think there is a risk that as we bring more people and as there's more press attention to the program and attention from during a presidential campaign season, that people could start misinterpreting the goals of this. This is an American program. It's a fine American tradition. I think most Americans should take pride in both our overseas humanitarian endeavors and our domestic ones. So thank you in advance for the help you're giving us with your colleagues to continue the strong support we get. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of you for the great work you're doing. Mr. Stahl?
Yes, thank you very much for holding this hearing and also for identifying that it's not only the Syrians themselves who are suffering, but the countries in the region, and the importance of maintaining their stability, but also their ability to absorb these additional refugees and people, and that's a critical part of the resources that you provide us, not only the humanitarian side, but even the development dollars are providing assistance to this crisis. And of course, at the end of the day, though, no matter how much we do on the humanitarian side, that's not going to resolve the problem. That's not even going to stop people from going to Europe. It's resolving the political issues and getting this there, and that's what we all hope for. Thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you very much, and we look forward to having you back with us in a few months' time so you can update us on the progress you have.